All right, so this is a lecture I usually give at the beginning of an investments course, and it's the only, for lack of a better term, philosophical part of the course. Usually, thereafter we go right into market microstructure, portfolio construction, derivative pricing, and so forth. But in the beginning, it's nice to understand, first and foremost, what do markets do? Why are free markets good, in other words? And usually for a decade, I've stood in front of students and asked them what, finance students generally, and asked them, why are free markets good? And usually there isn't such a clear answer, right? So we know we've been told free markets are good, but we can't really pinpoint why. So what I'm going to do here is pinpoint what's good about them. So often, let me mention, one of the things I often get was, in the free market there's competition, right? And so what I'm going to say right off the bat is competition is going to be an important aspect of this, but free markets do not exist just to have people compete, right? So what we're going to do is learn how competition is intertwined with free markets, right? Good. So usually, as a very easy example of the power of free markets, what we can do is and talk about, what we're going to talk about is what they do, and we're going to give a brief example. So now I can tell you right, I have it here, this is what markets are going to do. At the end of the day, I'm going to say markets aggregate information and they organize society. So you should see this come out in this example. But this, as an easy example, we can think of an economy which has fixed prices and an economy which is a free market, right? So you could say USSR and USA, broadly speaking. Keep in mind, in the United States, we have many markets which are not free. A classic example of which is the federal funds market. This is it's controlled by the Federal Reserve. The price of overnight money is set by the Federal Reserve. So we are not entirely a free market. We have many prices that are fixed in our economy. But we'll look at two types of economies here: fixed and a price in which an economy in which prices are fixed, and an economy in which prices can freely fluctuate. So if you take the price of wheat, let's say what happens if there's a big storm that destroys a lot of the wheat crop. Well, of course, if the economy has fixed prices, then the prices don't change. But in a free market, the prices will increase. Right? Now, the effect of this is consumers, right? They take prices as a signal. So consumers in this economy where prices are fixed, well, they don't change their demand. The price hasn't changed, so I don't change my behavior. Right? This is where we start seeing the organizing society. I don't change my behavior. Whereas in a free market, I go to the store and I say, oh, bread is a lot more. Well, I'm going to not buy bread, so I'll reduce my demand for wheat, and I'm going to buy rice, I'll buy potatoes, I'll buy substitutes for wheat, right? So in a free market, I've observed that price signal. There's a storm that knocked out the demand. That increases the price. I, as a consumer, observe that price signal, and then I change my behavior. And the ultimate effect of this is, if there's much less wheat and consumers demand everything that they demanded when there was more wheat, then they'll ultimately run out of wheat. Whereas in a free market, we won't run out of wheat. The price of wheat will go up. You may not like the price of wheat. Everyone complains when the price of oil goes up, but we don't run out of it, right? The idea here is the price of wheat is more, and also I've gone to substitute. So the idea here is, if I don't want to pay that increased price of wheat, I'll never run out. I have the option to pay it if I want to, but if I don't want to pay it, I can buy potatoes and things like that. So the idea of this is what the free market is doing here is they're aggregating it, first and foremost, aggregating information. So the idea here is there's a storm, right? This is a piece of information. The market, even before the storm hits, sees the storm coming and says, oh, this is going to knock out a bunch of the wheat crop. They start bidding up the price of wheat. So the first and foremost, what markets do is they aggregate information. And in fact, what you could be saying there is, fixed prices here, but what if we had a team of crack economists, right, who would observe market events and then adjust prices accordingly. In fact, in command economies, Soviet economy and so forth, they did do that. They did have people that would try to set the price. But the key here is, and the key underlying the free market system is, no group of economists can do it as well as the market can do. What we found, if you could create, now an artificial intelligence that would set prices as well as the free market, as accurately as the free market, then we could get rid of it. But the idea here is we have found no mechanism that aggregates information as well as the free market, right? So, so the first and foremost, what free markets do, even if you allow the economists in this fixed prices economy to start changing it, they won't change it accurately. They'll be too slow. And again, well, I was going to say this could be a criticism of the Federal Reserve, but I'm going to leave that alone. But so the idea here is the market is the best thing we have, the best mechanism we have to aggregate information. And then again, once that information is aggregated into prices, right? The consumers change their behavior dependent on those prices. So the price of oil goes up, I go buy a Tesla, right? This changes your behavior, right? So the key here is in a free market, you're not just free. We don't mean you can do whatever you want. You are organized by price signals. So these price signals are good because they've been made by the most efficient mechanism we have for setting prices. And then you react and you change your behavior dependent on those prices, right? Now, again, in a command economy like the old Soviet economy, they would try to dictate, right? So they had their ways of organizing society, but so they would say, buy this car, right? And so forth. Whereas here, we don't tell you what to do, we just give you price signals. And I often like to think of it as a kind of a more, a nicer way of organizing society. So instead of somebody telling you what to do, I can say, well, I really like trucks, so I'm willing to save and spend less in other areas of my life so I can still buy a truck even though prices are going up. So the idea here is this, you can look at the way that a free market organizes society is it organizes it on average. Oil prices go up, I may still buy my truck, but other people will go and, somebody else might, more people might go and buy electric cars. So that on average, the demand for gasoline declines, the demand for oil declines in the economy. So, but in a very real sense, the free market is organizing society in an efficient way. So now you sit there and say, okay, well, where does competition go in here? Well, the idea of this is, the competition is to aggregate information, right? So the idea here is, one thing we haven't talked about is, well, if I'm going to aggregate this information into price, consumers react to price signals. So how do I get people to give those price signals to aggregate information? Obviously, it's not free for me to watch what's going on in storm, in weather, and then try to predict what effect this will have on wheat prices. We should compensate people for doing so. So the idea of competition is the way the free market really relies on competition is we compete, speculators compete to aggregate that information in. And if I'm wrong, if I try to aggregate information in the market and I'm wrong, I will lose. But if I'm right, I will make money. And this is why some people, they don't like free market because they'll see a lot of people making a lot of money. But this is necessary to get those price signals. So the idea here is if we don't allow people to make money, why would they aggregate that information to prices? I'll give an example. So I did wheat markets here. I usually trade in energy markets. A while ago, a storm hit Houston, and what happened is a lot of people started bidding up the price of gasoline, right? And this was days before the storm hit. And I'm looking at this going, well, I think the move in gasoline is done, but the crude oil hadn't moved. And if you know markets, we have what'll happen is crude oil is the NYMEX contract is traded for delivery in Cushing, Oklahoma, right? So you have, I'll draw on this, Houston down here in the Gulf Coast. This is the Gulf of Mexico. You have Houston. You have Cushing, Oklahoma. And I saw that the price of they're bidding up the price of gasoline because there's a lot of refineries around here. But keep in mind, if these refineries are shut down and oil is still coming into Cushing, oil doesn't have anywhere to go. So the idea is the price of oil should decline at Cushing, Oklahoma, the price of crude oil. So I shorted crude oil and ultimately was right. But so the idea here is this takes this aggregating information And don't worry, I've been wrong many times with the idea. That's when it, where I'm correctly aggregating information. I realize something before the market realizes it, that yeah, they've reacted here, but they haven't sufficiently reacted here. So I get money for that, right? So the idea of competition is to get people to really try to correctly aggregate that information. And if they really try, and they're right, and we do a good job of aggregating information, well, then our society will be organized better. So those people profiting off of speculating in markets, if they do their job well and they make money, well, ultimately, we as consumers will get better price signals, and we will be able to organize our society more efficiently. So you'll be able to say, oh, I better buy potatoes, right? And so there's a real and solid measurable benefit to society in terms of being organized, using our resources. When I say the society is more efficient, I mean we have a set of resources and we use them in a way which allows greatest production, right? So efficient is, I mean something specific here. We're able to produce the most with a given set of inputs. So if the speculators will make money doing so, but it's that information is aggregated most accurately, and therefore we are able to produce the most with our given set of inputs. Excellent.